Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Art Show, featuring Victoria Chick, a contemporary figurative artist and early 19th and 20th century print collector. Welcome, everyone. Every third Saturday, we get to go to Silver City, New Mexico to chat with contemporary figurative artist Victoria Chick. And over the last few shows, we've actually been digging into some of our article archives and revisiting them because, gosh, so much has happened over time. You know, Victoria is part of Big Blend Radio, which is 18 years this year. 18 years we've been podcasting, but we've known her previous, like, you know, when we did just print magazines. We knew her back in the antique days of publishing. And so we're going to be talking about antiques in a different way today. We're going to go into a story about Pony Hills. It's a home of Pony Hills near Deming, New Mexico, which is down the road from her. And this is really about these prehistoric petroglyphs, which we've talked about on some recent shows. And excited to talk about this because Nancy and I just came, we saw Victoria, we got to see her and husband Mike and in Silver City, and then drove from there to Texas, but did some parts of this region that she's talking about. So as we were driving, I'm like, I wonder, are we there? Are we near there? We did go by the City of Rocks, so she's going to talk about that. But very excited because, you know, petroglyphs are fascinating. So welcome back, Victoria. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm very well and happy to talk about Pony Hill.
I love this because, you know, we talk about some things we've talked about in ancient times, ancient podcasting times when we actually used real phones, not cell phones even, like actually picked up like, you know, those dial, like different, huh? But back then, this is part of a cool thing about going and revisiting things and updating people. You know, since when you first, you know, had this article, which I think we did this was at least 2017 when we talked about it. Since then, you started really spearheading this project to create a museum in New Mexico, in Silver City, a fine art museum known as, it's being called the Southwest Regional Art Museum, Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center. So you don't have a building yet. People can go to the website, southwest-art-museum.org, and learn about this. But is the Pony Hills area, like when you look at the Southwest New Mexico, would you say that where we're going to talk about those petroglyphs kind of fold into that area that you're covering, or no?
Right.
That was my long way of getting to the point of where this is. And promoting the museum.
well, it's a circuitous route, you know, but it's actually off I-10. It's actually off a parallel road that goes to Hatch, New Mexico, between there and Deming. So to get to it is the best. Besides my giving you information about directions, which is a bad idea. The best thing to do if you want to experience Pony Hills is to go to the Deming Visitor Center, and they will give you directions, okay? Make sure you follow them very closely because the road there is actually a very country road. It's maintained, but it's gravel and it's windy, and you might meet somebody, so you might have to pull over a little bit to get there. Once you do, it's really worth it. And you talked about that article. When I wrote that article was shortly after I had been to Pony Hills for the first time. And, you know, we use the expression, you know, I was really blown away. Well, sometimes it gets overused, but not in this case. Because Pony Hills is like going into some artist's studio who's invited you in, you know, and you can't believe how good it is. I've never seen so many petroglyphs at one time in one place, and petroglyphs they weren't all huge petroglyphs. Maybe they were mostly maybe a foot tall, maybe not quite that, but they were so inventive, so exciting to look at. that I really recommend anybody that's in our area to go take a look.
Mm. No, I think that when you look at the images and everyone, the link to the article is in the show episode notes, as well as Victoria's website, which is victoriachick.com. Put the museum in there too, because I want people to know and support what you're doing, because it's really going to affect all these small communities in the Southwest and draw people to Silver City, which is an art community. But to include Pony Hills on your art adventure in the Southwest region of New Mexico, and it's great weather to go out there, right? It's a little chilly though. I know you guys have been getting a cold winter.
Well, every place is cold right now. So,
yeah,
but,
no
kidding. It's almost 60 here today. I don't expect next week is going to be as good or as warm. So
yeah, but I think it's a good time to go.
Absolutely.
Less snakes when you're clambering around rocks that have
petroglyphs on them. I've lived in New Mexico for almost 20 years now, and I've seen 3 snakes. And believe me, I'm out in the boonies usually tramping around. And we don't, there are snakes in New Mexico, but I can't see that they're a problem.
The last time I saw a snake in New Mexico was on my way to your house. on Cow Trail.
He never got here. He never got here, Lisa.
I know your studio is not open until, when you allow people to come in. It's a closed off studio, Cow Trail studio. Right. But I remember it was the first time and I sincerely don't think it was the last time, and driving up and it was so funny because there was this giant rattlesnake going across the dirt road, and Nancy like, oh, look how beautiful and cool it is. Most people kind of freak, but we think they're cool. And then there were elk. I'm like, what is going on at Victoria's? She's got nature in her backyard. But when you go around petroglyphs and rocks in the Southwest, do be aware that all kinds of critters like to live in and around and on rocks. I'm just saying.
Don't wear sandals. Don't wear sandals. And,
don't go barefoot. I have to say that.
No. Yeah, please.
I have to say that because a park ranger told me when we were in Fort Bowie, National Monument, Historical Fort Bowie. It is in Southeast Arizona. It's on the way. It's near Victoria. So, and everywhere we're talking about now. It's not far from Silver City, maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And, Fort Bowie is like this amazing, it's connected to Silver City because of Geronimo, and Geronimo, his birthplace is up by the Gila Cliff Dwellings, and Geronimo was also captured here. This is where the Apache Wars happened, and his great-great-grandson, I think, is buried there, and you can see his resting spot in the graveyard right there, or should I say cemetery, since there's no church. But you walk in. You have to walk from the parking lot to the visitor center. It's about 1.5 miles hike through the desert. And, on our way, we were with the park ranger, and who now is in another fort in Nevada, but she likes forts. And we saw, tarantulas and all kinds of stuff. And she was telling us that people who are not used to the Southwest will park their car. And it's the dead of, we were in July. It was hot. Like it was really, really hot hiking through there. And they would park their car, and that's where the visitor centers, where the ruins are, and walk barefoot. And she's like, no. So I know I sound ridiculous mentioning this, but I'm not, because people do it if they don't know, and you don't know what you're going to get yourself into. And if you have to make a quick move, now there are always that 1% of people that can and do that. And I have a friend who's a barefoot walker, and she did it all through the Daintree rainforest in Australia with snakes, and they got big snakes. And she does it in New Mexico too. She lives in New Mexico, but, so you can, but, anyway, going to see these petroglyphs are amazing looking at the pictures. There's one that's like a circle-ish it's like a fireball, but with dots in the center going around in a circle. Victoria, that's amazing, isn't it, when you look at it?
Well, when we're looking at things that are, hundreds of years old, and why they did what they did is as designs and so forth, we extrapolate or interpret what we know, and we try to understand what they did by what we know. So we're not always accurate, but that's okay. I mean, we're not being archaeologists here. We're actually in a wonderland of petroglyphs. And you mentioned something about snakes. I want to mention something from a safety standpoint. This is Pony Hill is not a visitor site per se. It's not identified. I'm telling you about something that's not official. Okay, so you can get directions there, but there's not a visitor center there. There's not amenities. There's not a Coke machine there. You've got to take water with you, plenty of water, to go there, just to be safe.
I agree. And make sure your gas tank is full when you leave and go there.
Yeah.
Because it can be a few miles before you get gas when you're driving through the wilds of New Mexico. It's very true. Trust me, it is. And bathrooms too. So yeah, this is remote.
Right, yeah.
It's remote. But that's what makes it so special, you know?
Right.
So, and it's outside Deming, so not too far from stuff, civilization. But I just looking at these, they did. I think one of them, one of the pictures looks like a snake. It's got like a rattle at the tail. It's pretty fat, and it's got like the tongue, like the forked tongue. So I'm thinking it's a rattlesnake because it looks like rattles in the end to me.
Right.
Or centipede. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it certainly could be. It certainly could be. And the artists that did these weren't. I don't know that they were designated as artists when they did them, but they had the ability to design what they did on these rocks. They chipped their designs into the rocks so that the design was, there's a very contrast between, so they're very linear. The designs are linear in petroglyphs. So some of the rocks have what's tentatively called varnish, desert varnish on it. Just makes the rock, various kinds of rocks oxidate differently depending on what minerals are in them. So some of them have kind of a black background. Some of them have a reddish background. Some of them are not as exciting because the contrast is not as great because the rocks just are still sort of gray. And these may have been done, it's probably between 800 BC and I'm guessing as late or as early as maybe 200 or 300 BC.
Yeah.
AD, wow. Excuse me. I'm saying BC, I mean AD. So I mean, it's a long period of time, and we don't know necessarily who did that because there's no interpretive information there. So you're left guessing, and that's kind of fun in a way.
Yeah, because some of it looks like little alien people.
Yeah,
with big heads and those eyes.
Some of it looks like it was done by someone who was really skilled at what they were doing. Some of it looks like maybe kids were trying to imitate the adults that did these designs. So
it's those circles.
There's a lot we don't know. Yeah,
the circles blow my mind. Like, so they say if you can draw a perfect circle, we're insane. Well, these people can do concentric circles that are almost 100% perfect. Like what?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder about these ancient peoples, and then the Thunderbirds. I want to talk about that because we always talk about the Thunderbirds of the Southwest. It's in people's logos and like Route 66 stuff, the Thunderbird Lodge and all of that. So we don't have any now. Were these a symbol like the Kokopelli? So I'm wondering about the Thunderbird.
Yeah. It was a symbol.
Yeah. But something started the symbol. That's what I'm fascinated.
Sure.
That's where I go down
something in
rabbit
nature.
hole.
Something in nature started it. Yes. Yeah. So
now, I want to go. I mean, how many have you gone back, or that one just had that one?
Yes, because it's so interesting. Every time I get company, I take them there, because it's so unique. I mean, there are plenty of places you can find. Well, not plenty. There are many places you can find petroglyphs. I saw some in Utah that were 3 feet tall, which is they were larger than anything around here. So I think a lot of tribal groups were into petroglyphs making, but this is so unusual to see so many well done, so many unusual ones that I always take people. So when you come back, if you have time, we'll go to Pony Hills.
We'll go see it. We'll be in the summer so we can go find snakes, whether they're part of the petroglyphs or there. We can compare. If we see a rattlesnake, we'll say, "Excuse me, go up to your petroglyph." We want
in the summertime. In the summertime, it's going to be too hot for the snakes. They'll be underneath the rocks. So
and we don't want to knock on their doors.
Still wear boots.
Yeah, no. But this is so exciting to talk about these. And I think, we do need to look at this as art, but communication and storytelling, which is art, right? And so
every piece of art is communicating something. And these are no exceptions. So whether the art is on a rock or the art is in a museum, has been designated as real art, it's all real art to me. And
wow. How many petroglyphs do you think are there? Because when I look at some of the images, it's like a gazillion of them.
There's
so
hundreds. There's hundreds. Because it's a small area. It's not acres and acres. The area is probably it's a very small hillside. You have to climb up one side where you don't see any petroglyphs. You climb a couple hundred feet on this trail, and then once you get to the top, there are petroglyphs, and on the other side there are petroglyphs. So
I wonder, is there a water source near it, like the other petroglyph sites that we've talked about? Like, so this could have been like a dwelling area, or like a travel, like it was, the inn. It's an inn, where people are on their, because they're nomadic peoples too, that they probably did, like maybe they're going, hey, here's my answer to you, It's like, dear editor.
No. Okay. What I know is what I've experienced when I was there, and I ask these kind of questions because it is strange. This is a very arid area now, but it is close to the Membres River, which by the time it gets to this area is totally underground, and goes underneath. It flows underneath Deming even, and then on its way to Mexico. I don't know what it was like, but I do know there in the 1800s there was an advertisement on the East Coast about the wonderful paddle wheel adventure that you could take a boat ride up the Membres River, which of course, and it was a total hoax to get people to come to New Mexico.
I'm going, wow. I mean, like, I don't remember hearing. I know that you could do it on the Colorado River. In the lower Colorado River, they had paddle boats.
The Colorado River actually had water in it. So.
Yeah.
And the Membres River, all its water is subsurface. So there's no possibility of a paddle wheeler going up. Anyway, but the people who live around laugh about it. But there probably was more water than there is now. And and there probably were springs in the area. So hundreds of years ago, it might have been quite different.
Okay.
But I still wonder why that particular site was picked, because it's a little mound of a hill. Around it are nice mountains, what I call real mountains. And then in other direction, it's totally flat. So, it's a puzzle as to why it's where it is and who did it. We don't know. Most of the designs you could probably identify with the Mogollon people and the pottery. However, up by where the Mogollon people are now, and we're talking about the same time period, I think. there are no petroglyphs near where they live. So this might have been a pilgrimage site, kind of. And also, in more recent history, this was an Apache stronghold. So I don't know if the Apaches did art like that. That would be an interesting thing to investigate. So I might do that.
Because you do have like a lot of Apache history in your area, for sure.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Geronimo,
but it's in terms of petroglyphs. In terms of petroglyphs, we don't really associate the tribe with the petroglyphs. So, but that doesn't mean they didn't do some.
So, yeah, it's true because things change over time, and rocks break and split and do all kinds of things. Erosion.
Right.
There's some basic things that really do happen that way. I find it fascinating. It's like a newspaper. That's why they call it all of these newspaper rocks. And like you said, I think even before we were recording, you're like, this is a museum. This is an outdoor museum, art museum and history museum and communication. But the fact that they have little alien drawings everywhere, like, that kind of maybe means, because, Roswell ain't that far away. It could get into that. Maybe,
we don't know.
Unidentified,
So,
there's plenty of flat land to land things on. I'm just saying.
Let's land on that rock.
I know, but that's my rock. Get off of it. Oh no, don't land there. There's a rattlesnake. But that's I want to know.
The rattlesnakes probably chase the aliens off. So.
I know, they're like, don't land here, but we'll draw them because someone saw them. But I also wonder about things like the Thunderbird and the Kokopelli and these symbols, right? Of also what they're drawing. So now this gets a little weird because, of course, we have to derail on every podcast. So the indigenous people were also smoking things and using psychedelics, right? Like peyote, and they do vision quests, even if they're not taking anything, ingesting anything that would be psychedelic, but they did like intense meditation, right? Basically, if you think about it, and vision quests are huge. So I wonder about all of this.
It was ritual.
Yeah, ritual. So I wonder how much of that ends up being part of the petroglyphs, like even in Chaco Canyon, because that was a ceremonial site dedicated to the solstice, right? That we know of.
So they got a lot of, and up there they have a lot of logical, astronomical signs.
Yeah, it's a dark sky area too. And they have, that's a huge thing for, and so what they're drawing, sometimes some of it looked astrological, whereas some people would say it's snake. So to me, it's looking, when you look at the stars and you see those lines connecting to the stars, when we look on that kind of stuff, that's what it looks like to me. So I think some of it is, astronomy. And then,
definitely.
Yeah. And then I wonder if, like, are they seeing, these unidentified beings? And maybe it's from doing a vision quest or a ritual, or, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, we all create things.
When you're on drugs, you do see things differently.
But we don't need drugs to create fantasy, right? But where does the imagination where do we get all this fantasy stuff from? That's what always intrigues me about anything that is, like, there's writers who do fiction, and we'd read novels, but the fiction comes from stories somewhere. Right. And it's something most of the time. Then there's the fantasy fiction. So it's the same thing in art. And, when we look at abstract art and art that kind of makes you think in all these different ways, like petroglyphs, I wonder how much of where does the actual fantasy, like our imagination, what is it grabbing from to create something that we don't know about at all?
A lot of people who've read a lot of Carl Jung's work on the collective consciousness would attribute it to that, and that it's a sort of a universal things that make people scared. There's universal things that that are good or evil, and people, that's their rationale. And I've read a lot of it. Um, I don't base my life on it, but it's always interesting. It's always interesting, and it's always. There's all kinds of things that make us wonder, where did we come from? Why are we here? That kind of thing. So, what should we do? I tend, you see strange designs. I'll just say the whole designs in petroglyphs, along with things that are easily recognizable, although they might be stylized, like animal figures and so forth. So it's a mystery, and that's one of the life's wonderful things, that we still have mysteries.
I love it. I looked up. Well, you see, but this is what art does. It makes you think deeper, and I think that's fantastic.
Yes.
And it is. I looked up, of course, Thunderbird. I had to go do it, and they're saying that it's definitely Native American mythology, but it's a spirit form of a bird, but it does also have human features, right? So that's kind of but that's also part of.
That's pretty.
That's common. We want
people want to relate to whatever their belief in. If they have a belief in something, that something has some human characteristics, probably, because
or the human wants those characteristics.
We have to identify with it. When it has to be power. Some people then gravitate to worship. Some people gravitate to, at their level, whatever that level is, studying it. And, people go in different directions.
The Thunderbird, this is what's interesting, going back to water, right? It says, this is from the Britannica Encyclopedia. Okay, so I'm not making this up. It says it's a powerful spirit in the form of a bird. By its work, the earth was watered and vegetation grew. Lightning was believed to flash from its beak, and the beating of its wings was thought to represent the rolling of thunder. So this is almost going towards water for fertility and for food, and, water to drink, and then for food. So I wonder if this is kind of like also because you have amazing monsoon storms, that maybe it could be part of that whole cycle of the Thunderbird came. And that's the communication of, like, here it does rain, and, maybe it's part of a monsoon that someone did that, like, afterwards.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many, that's a really, really interesting theoretical connection. And, why didn't they, and we say, gosh, why didn't they write that down? Well, they sort of did, because they made a petroglyph out of it. So we're left to interpret what they left. What the petroglyphs they left. So, and since we haven't had their experiences necessarily, our interpretation might be spot on, but it could be wrong. And I guess in some ways I go there. I think everything's interesting, but I go there because I'm an artist. I enjoy their art. I enjoy seeing what they did. I like their designs. I like the lines they used. It's the same reason I go to see them, really, for the same reason that I would go to a museum, and that is to see the art and enjoy it. And I don't have to interpret it, although sometimes that's really good too.
That's my fun. I like to do that.
Yeah.
And try to interpret, but it's always a guessing game. Like, to me, like the Thunderbird, like, maybe I look at it because I'm, into documenting and publishing, and that's my world, right? As a magazine person, media. And it's, Nancy and our people, and the same as everyone in our media, you see something happen and you can't shut up. You have to let everybody
Right.
know. Like this is going on, y'all. There's no keeping secrets with us at all. So I mean, really, we go to a place like Pony Hills, like you want to go, everybody, you must see this. And we tell everybody, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder, in the different tribes, as people are maybe nomadic and moving through, that the petroglyph creators, the artists, the storytellers are like, you are the designated storyteller,
Yeah.
of the tribe. And as they go, they're like documenting what happened in the space when they were there. So like they're the journalist of the tribe. And that's
Right.
their way of sharing for maybe when part of their relative tribe comes through, like a relative group of people come through, could be friends. It's letting people know, hey, we were here. And the Thunderbird there knows mostly going to be monsoon storms, really, or it could be a winter rain. But it's like, hey, I want you to know that this happened and occurred. And it gives people hope to understand when to come back through or not. Is this, if you see it all, dry, gives you some hope that something can come through, like rain. So I'm
You
just
may be
thinking
right.
about
It does.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, yeah, this is cool. I love these conversations with you because it messes with my brain for the rest of the day.
Okay.
It does. I go, what about
I don't.
this?
I don't try to do that, but I,
Yeah. Well,
you know, yeah. I think these sort of things, places are so interesting, and that that within their I'll call it their vocabulary, that you can see that there's a connection with various groups, and then you see some things that are just totally totally new, totally left for us to figure out. I mean, like you're talking about this, like the circle stuff, or they like the starburst kind of thing. That because we've had experiences that they have not had. I mean, we're interpreting it based on our own experience, which is all we can do. I mean, the archaeology, for the most part, interprets the past based on tribes today that they can observe, and then they interpret, they extrapolate what they see in, I'll call it, primitive tribes today that they can observe. They interpret that the people of the past were the same. That was their reason for doing something. It's the same as the folks today, and it might or might not be. A lot of it is just it's not guesswork, because they're basing it on what's observable. But we still don't know. It's somebody's best guess.
I'm looking at this because when you see, someone's best guess, one of them, they could be doing plant life. There's so much that they could be doing, but like I'm looking at one that looks kind of like a squid. A picture of a squid. Like it's a bending kind of, it looks like it's either, it's hungover, it's like a hungover squid. I've got into this now. I'm down the rabbit hole. And then I go, well, it's almost like a sea monkey. So when we talk about the desert being this ancient seabed, right? So now I'm going, dude, we don't know now.
I was just thinking of that, sea monkeys. And we bought them in comic books, in the 60s or 50s. So, but
I remember those.
But maybe they were maybe sea monkeys were larger. They are fairy shrimp actually, but were larger 300 years ago. So that squid looks pretty good.
Or maybe it's a freshwater squid thing that we don't know about, or it could be smaller. Because it does, it's so hard to tell because of the way the size is of everything. Though they also have one that's real close to the rattlesnake. There's a petroglyph that's, just kind of next to the rattlesnake one. And it's a circle with a cross in the middle, like exactly like if you would cut a pizza into 4 pieces. So I'm trying to figure that out because it almost would be like a window with the portal and it's like a portal with,
Yeah.
it's odd, like, because I mean, why wouldn't they have what we have now in design back then? But like the square kind of line thing, that's weird to me, for back then. Everything was very
Yeah.
circular. But
And
maybe
you'll
it's
see
just
things
somebody going, hey, that
look
looks
like
cool.
you'll see stuff that looks like Nazi swastikas too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. In fact,
And
that's a
yeah,
huge
but
deal.
that is a like almost a universal design. I mean, you look back at ancient history, which was well, like Greek, let's say, or Rome, or civilizations that we consider old. A lot of them had that kind of cross design, and so it's maybe sort of universal, and that doesn't need Nazi necessarily.
Exactly.
So we have to be careful
Yeah.
how we interpret the present stuff into the past.
Well, there's a bridge near Yuma, Arizona that has a Nazi sign on it. And it's like an old bridge, but someone did it years and years ago.
Uh-huh.
But it was not done. I actually think it's on the Kashan side, the Kashan tribe. And because I've seen it and I photographed it and it's one of those old truss bridges, but it wasn't meant as a swastika. Gosh,
Sure.
that was so long ago that we did that. But, and, they've talked about it in visitor guides and stuff like, please don't think it's that. Nobody was representing that on that bridge. That was historically done by some of the Native Americans. So I wonder about that because like that area, you had the Kashans and then the Hohokams, like in the southern Arizona, which is kind of on that same beltway, like because of the Gila River, right? So the Gila River area by Gila Bend had the Hohokams, and that's where Olive Oatman lived for a while when she was stolen, right? Olive Oatman. Everyone look up Olive Oatman. That's a whole other. She was taken by a tribe in Oatman, Arizona, and they at one point her and her sister were stolen, and they cut her sister's nose off. This is brutal what happened, and they tattooed Olive Oatman, and all of that happened. But later in life, she did get away, and she lived with them. I think her sister died because it was too much for her. It was so traumatic. She kind of died of not being able to survive this whole thing because you have to look at, the Caucasian people at that time were looking at Native Americans as savages. And I'm not saying they are at all. I'm just saying that's what they thought of. And so people get in the middle of wars that were being between the Native Americans and the U.S. cavalry, right? And then people in the middle were getting in the middle of it because they're living out there. And so Olive Oatman wasn't necessarily against Native Americans, but she was there and they took her because it's going against the U.S. military because the cavalry was being really cruel to the indigenous people of this country. And so, hey, we stole a couple of girls, but they lived in the reeds in that area of Gila Bend, which is where some really big, one of my favorite petroglyph sites is, Painted Rocks out there. But I'm wondering because the Gila River connects over to like the Gila cliff dwellings and Southwest New Mexico, because some of the similarities, I'm wondering about that. Like if it was the same people coming through. It's interesting.
I really have no idea.
I don't either. It's just cool to talk about. Think about, I wish I could just ring them up and say, hey, do you have Google? Can we talk? We've got Zoom, because it's so hard to really know. I mean, we're not archaeologists, but it's whenever you have these kinds of questions in your mind about art,
the rivers are connectors everywhere.
Yes.
And, that's good because walking can be the pits that far. So, but I'm sure there was more water at one time than there is now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talk about climate change, and things have shifted. So,
Yeah, no,
It
no, it
just
has.
has to do, it wasn't people that caused it back then. And so anyway,
Yeah,
I'm
no.
going on a different rabbit trail, and I don't want to do that.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm pulling you up, buddy. I'm pulling you out of the trail by your tail. But, but this is the thing about art. No matter how ancient it is,
Yeah,
historic or contemporary and new, it makes you think and question. And that's the beauty of the arts. And so I love these
yeah.
conversations because it's always, I mean, we can talk about this each one for years because you just don't know. But
Yeah,
that quest to, we were talking about the vision quests. That, that curiosity is the beauty of life. It's finding out what makes you excited. It makes you feel like,
right.
oh, am I curious about aliens? Were aliens there? Now I'm going to start a Google search and find out if little green people were there. Were they green if they were there? Maybe not. But that's the cool thing is it gets people to find out what they're interested in, which can lead to other things in life that you never know. That's part of being
Yeah,
happy and living here on the planet,
right, right.
So that's my self-help tip for the day. Let's go look at art and find out what makes you happy. And if it makes you mad, that's also a good thing because then you know what you don't like, right? That's the other part. I mean, isn't
Well,
that something too? If you don't like something, that's quite okay.
well, this reminds me of a conversation I had recently about the museum, whatever that we're trying to do. Well, our museum, because we're semi-small, we have to limit things. So we are focusing on American art, but our museum is confusing because we also want to represent Southwest New Mexico. We want to serve Southwest New Mexico. So that's our name is Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center. But I had a conversation yesterday with somebody who asked me, "What kind of art are you going to have in the museum?" Because she made an assumption that we're going to have Southwest art. What in her mind was cowboys and Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And so I tried to explain to her that there would be some Indian artists' work in the museum, and some early Western Anglo artists' work in the museum. But she had a mindset that she only wanted to see Indian art. And there's some wonderful Indian art, and we hope to have more of it. But we can't have a museum of only that. So, when you only want to look at stuff you like, you can miss a lot by exposing yourself to other kinds of something. In this case, art, or it could be ideas, or it could be anything else. So I think being open to seeing the petroglyphs, or open to seeing modern art, or open to seeing or reading books that you think you aren't going to like. Mm-hmm. It can be a challenge, but you can get a lot out of it. You can reap rewards by following some other pattern of thinking for a while. Maybe you can reinforce that you don't like it, and that could happen. But I would just encourage people to be open to looking at new things.
Yeah, that's my thing too, is look at new things. That's how you find out what brings you joy in life. That's kind of my idea of that. I mean, to me, it's like, ooh, is this what I enjoy and like, and do I want to do more? And then the problem is for me, I find too much. I want to do the blend.
Well,
I think it's so hard to do, like even what you're doing in the museum, to go, okay,
right.
This is that, because people put things in little boxes.
Yes.
And in museum, you have to like curate things, and it's great because you can have rotating exhibits, which are fantastic, and main ones, like
Yes.
these are the permanent ones, but the rotating ones kind of satisfies that other part that people need to open your mind. Like if it's going to be so cool as this develops. I mean, it's pretty exciting,
It is.
with what's
It
happening
is.
with it. I'm going to give everyone the website again, southwest-art-museum.org, and Victoria's is victoriachick.com. All of it is linked in the episode notes, as well as the article about Pony Hills. And I know, because as we were talking, I'm like, Google Pony Hills, and the article comes up. I'm like, all right, well, there it is. So it's there. It's there, but, always so much fun, Vicki, to talk with you. We will be chatting next month again, I'm sure, and we'll talk more about the museum too.
Okay. I keep you guys posted, because there is a lot happening right now.
Yes.
And I'm very encouraged by the response of the people living in Silver City to having a fine art museum here, because as you know, it is an art community anyway. But what we hope is that many people from other places will come and visit it. We'll make sure it's worth your while.
Yeah, no,
and you could go to the Pony Hills site too. So while you're here,
that's my thing, is everyone go there. That's what I thought about. What was cool about this conversation is like, hey, this is something you can do if you go to Southwest New Mexico. Definitely put Silver City on your map, the Gila Cliff Dwellings, the Gila National Forest, all of that. But definitely put this on your map if you can, if that's your kind of thing. And if you're listening, obviously it is. So go. But Silver City has so much from like this ancient art that we're talking about. Even going to the Cliff Dwellings, and then there's another museum you definitely want to go to, is the University Museum out there. And that really has a lot of the Mogollon pottery, and it's fascinating. So, definitely go there. There's also a great museum just on Silver City in the area where you can learn about people like Madame Millie.
Yes.
Can't we?
you can, that is the Silver City Museum. And it's really good.
It is really good. It is, for sure. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back next month. Every third Saturday, we chat with Victoria. Take care. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. You can view Victoria Chick's artwork at victoriachick.com. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.